May 8th, Jamarquis Black was arrested and charged with domestic violence and aggravated stalking of his ex-girlfriend, Pheonecia Ratliff.
Early this morning, had her calling me off his phone and told me to take her baby to his auntie house, and he was going to bring her back safe. That didn't happen.
Yeah, the gunman kidnapped the woman from her home in Canton late last night and shot her sister, who tried to stop him. The police chief was on the phone throughout the night with the man, pleading with him to let the woman go.
He was saying, "Mom, just know I love you." I was Alex, her sister that got shot. She was just telling me how she loved me, and she loved me, and tell everybody that she loved them.
Pretty lively 26-year-old Pheonecia Ratliff was on her way to the life she wanted. She was scheduled to graduate from historically black Jackson State University in Jackson, Mississippi in December 2020. She planned to quit her 2 jobs at Subway and Walmart in Canton, where she lived with her mother and 3 of her 4 siblings, and find a job in early childhood education. She loved children and had a baby daughter, Jordyn, who was only 1, but Pheonecia's ex-boyfriend, Jamarquis Black, wanted custody of their daughter and said he would end it for Pheonecia if he didn't get it.
Suzanne Briscoe said her daughter was getting ready to graduate from Jackson State University in December, but instead of her finishing school and being a mother, her life was taken by her ex-boyfriend.
Situated just half an hour away from the Magnolia State's capital is Canton, a city known as the movie capital of Mississippi. Since 1995, Canton has been the home where many feature films, including The Time to Kill, My Dog Skip, and the celebrated Oh Brother, Where Art Thou, were brought to life. These movies have not only captivated the attention of people all over the country, but also drawn attention to the charm of this city. Other than its fame in the film industry, Canton holds another title that's just as if not even more important than the previous one. Its safety. Canton has been said to be about 71% safer than many other cities across the United States, making it an appealing place to raise a family. However, even in a close-knit community, safety isn't guaranteed, especially when danger lurks close to home. Pheonecia Ratliff came into the world on August 7, 1996, born to Fitzgerald Otto and Suzanne Ratliff in Canton, Mississippi. This small town, home to nearly 11,000 people, became her nurturing ground where she began her journey through life. Described as honest and reliable, Pheonecia had a heartwarming personality that could brighten anyone's day, even on their toughest days. Beyond being a wonderful friend and family member, Pheonecia was ambitious and diligent. She understood the importance of setting goals and working hard to achieve them. After completing her early education, she graduated from Canton High School before moving on to Jackson State University. In 2019, at the age of 22, while pursuing her higher education, Pheonecia embraced the incredible journey of motherhood, bringing a daughter into the world. Her life was even better with her daughter in it, a blend of determination, warmth, and a continuous quest for growth. Pheonecia's journey into motherhood began in November of that year, when her daughter came into the world. She and her long-term high school boyfriend, Jamarquis Black, welcomed this child together. However, what should have been a joyful time turned rough. Once Pheonecia found out she was pregnant and informed Jamarquis, things took a turn and the relationship began to face challenges. At first, Jamarquis accused Pheonecia of trying to trap him with the baby once they learned about the pregnancy. He made it clear that he didn't want the child and suggested Pheonecia visit a clinic. But despite his wishes, Pheonecia chose to embrace motherhood and welcomed her daughter into her life with open arms. However, this joyful moment didn't last long, as the arrival of the bundle of joy only served to worsen the relationship between Pheonecia and Jamarquis. Instead of loving his daughter, he started using her as a way to control Pheonecia, using her as a pawn in their relationship struggles. One way he did that was with their arguments. If things got tough between them, or if he felt Pheonecia wasn't doing something he wanted, Jamarquis would take the baby to his father's place, sometimes keeping her away from Pheonecia for days. He'd stay there, holding on to their child until he felt Pheonecia had changed her behavior, or, in simpler terms, until she met his demands. So even though there were a lot of challenges in their relationship, Pheonecia did her best to keep things going for the sake of their child. However, it felt like she was the only one making making an effort. Jamarquis seemed more focused on controlling her rather than building a healthy relationship together. Now, Pheonecia was incredibly dedicated, and even though she had just had a baby, she was still committed to pursuing her education. She did not let being a new mom slow her down. With the help of her family, she was able to be a good mom to her daughter and a focused student. There was only one problem: Jamarquis. Her boyfriend, Jamarquis, didn't support her efforts to keep schooling, and although she was doing her best to be good at both, Jamarquis kept telling her to quit school, insisting she had been there for too long. But Pheonecia was determined. Having a child motivated her to finish her education and provide the best for her daughter. Their troubles didn't end with arguments about finishing school, though. Jamarquis's controlling behavior grew more concerning. He was like he wanted to decide every part of her life for her, and wasn't satisfied unless she was doing exactly what he asked. He would tail her in his car, show up at her school, peek into her classrooms, follow her to work, and start arguments there. Sometimes, he'd even sneak into her home through the window just to watch her while she slept. Jamarquis's actions were distressing and invasive, creating a very unsafe environment for Pheonecia.
He was on my porch, climbed up my house, looking down in the window, stalking her.
By the start of spring 2020, Pheonecia had had enough of Jamarquis's controlling behavior and decided to end her relationship with him. The breakup step was her way of breaking free from him and taking back control of her own life. However, they still shared a daughter, so he was still very much a part of her life whether she liked it or not. This served to make things way worse for Pheonecia.
She tried to be civil with him. That didn't work.
After the breakup, Jamarquis started demanding full custody of their child. This was a child he didn't want, urged Pheonecia to get rid of, and even put Pheonecia through hell until she had the baby. Pheonecia was not about to let him get full custody. She strongly believed that she was the best parent for her daughter, so she denied his request. She was, however, willing to share custody with him in order to allow him to spend time with their child. But this did not satisfy Jamarquis, and he continuously pushed for sole custody, bringing up this demand every chance he got. April 28, 2020 rolled around, and it started out as a typical day for Pheonecia, bringing with it the usual set of challenges that came with trying to manage being in school, being a mom, and working 2 jobs. Pheonecia worked at Walmart and Subway, but on this day, she was scheduled to work at Subway. She clocked in and began her shift, but not long after, she was shocked to see Jamarquis walk in, not because he had barged into her workplace uninvited. No, he had done that enough times that it had lost the element of shock. This time, Pheonecia was shocked because Jamarquis had barged into her workplace, a firearm in his hands. As Pheonecia stood there terrified for her life, he proceeded to threaten her, telling her she had 1 week to give him full custody of their child, or he was going to end it for her. But thankfully, fate took a turn in Pheonecia's favor when a police officer happened to pass by the subway. Seizing the opportunity, she went outside and flagged down the officer, leading to the arrest of Jamarquis Black.
May 8th, Jamarquis Black was arrested and charged with domestic violence and aggravated stalking of his ex-girlfriend, Pheonecia Ratliff.
Jamarquis was immediately booked into the Canton County Jail for felony stalking, amongst other serious charges. Surprisingly, his bond was set at just $15,000, which meant he only needed 10% to secure his release, so the actual amount he needed to walk away was just $1,500. He managed to pay this amount and was out on bail by May 11, 2020. Despite being given clear instructions to avoid contacting Pheonecia Ratliff, he immediately tried reaching out to her upon release. But as anyone in her situation would have done, Pheonecia didn't respond. As days passed by, Jamarquis kept trying to reach out to Pheonecia unsuccessfully. This made him very agitated, a state of mind that would have very disastrous consequences for Pheonecia. On the evening of May 14, 2020, things would come to a head. It had been a very long day for her, and a tired Pheonecia was managing to drag herself back home. On days like that, when she was getting back home pretty late, it was normal for Pheonecia's mother to wait up for her on the porch, just to make sure she got back home safely. But on this day, as she parked in the driveway, before she was able to make it safely inside, someone jumped out of the bushes and grabbed her. That person, it turned out, was Jamarquis Black. He had a firearm with him, and he basically tried to shove Pheonecia into his car. But Jamarquis's plan didn't go as smoothly as he hoped, because Pheonecia's 21-year-old sister was also on that porch waiting for her. So when she saw what was happening to her sister, she jumped in to try to stop Jamarquis from taking Pheonecia, but unfortunately, Jamarquis reacted quickly and fired at her, hitting her in her thigh.
I'm so proud of her. She took a bullet for her sister. She was willing to die to try to save her sister.
After firing at her sister, Jamarquis continued to force Pheonecia into his car, and once he succeeded, he drove off, leaving behind an anguished mother and a severely injured sister. The authorities were quickly called, and paramedics rushed in to help Pheonecia's sister, who thankfully was going to live, while the cops took off after Jamarquis Black.
Yeah, the gunman kidnapped the woman from her home in Canton late last night and shot her sister who tried to stop him. The police chief was on the phone throughout the night with the man, pleading with him to let the woman go.
He had some time on them, so he was hard to find. They searched and searched, combing miles and miles without finding either Jamarquis or Pheonecia. Hours would pass with no sightings of either of them until around 6 a.m. on May 15th, 2020. At around that time, Jamarquis called Pheonecia's mother out of the blue with one request, rather, a demand. He demanded that she take the baby to his aunt's house. Upon receiving this request, Pheonecia Ratliff was reluctant. She did not want to let her granddaughter go. However, she felt if she did what he asked, he might release Pheonecia.
Early this morning, he was had her calling me off his phone and told me to take her baby to his auntie house, and he was going to bring her back safe. That didn't happen.
So she gets up at 6 a.m. and drives to Jamarquis, his aunt's home, where she hands the baby off to his mother. After dropping the baby off, Pheonecia Ratliff had nothing else to do, and there were no further instructions from Jamarquis, so went home and prepared herself for work. She describes that at that moment, there wasn't much she could do, and she still had responsibilities, so she focused on doing things within her control, one of which was work. Though Pheonecia's mom hoped she would get a call from Jamarquis telling her where to come pick up her daughter, nothing was coming through, and it had now been several hours since the last contact with Pheonecia, or Jamarquis.
During the pursuit, Briscoe would hear from her daughter one last time.
However, around noon of that day, she would receive a call, but unfortunately, it would not be the phone call she desperately hoped for. This phone call would be from her daughter, Pheonecia. Pheonecia was distraught as she talked to her mother. She was crying, barely managing to get words out. She then tells her mother that she wanted her to know that she loves her and the entire family, and then the call abruptly ends.
He was saying, "Mom, just know I love you." I was Alex, her sister that got shot. She was just telling me how she loved me, and she loved me, and tell everybody that she loved them.
Shortly after receiving this phone call, the authorities would reach out to Pheonecia's mother and give her the news. However, it wasn't the news she wanted. They told her they had located Pheonecia and Jamarquis, but they were both deceased. Jamarquis had fired at Pheonecia once, killing her instantly before turning the weapon on himself.
We begin now with a breaking news report that we have been following all day. A deadly shooting that followed a police chase. Investigators say it's a murder. The victim, a beloved mother and Jackson State student. Police say the man who shot and killed her is her ex-boyfriend.
The authorities broke down the full details of what happened to Pheonecia's mom, and it turned out that they had been able to track Jamarquis's phone and pinged him in the Philadelphia area while he was still on the run, holding Pheonecia hostage. At some point, a trooper with the Mississippi Highway Patrol found Jamarquis's car, got behind them, and attempted to pull him over on I-55 South. Jamarquis was not ready to turn himself in or let Pheonecia go, so he led authorities on a chase before crashing near the 30-mile marker in Boca Chica.
Right now, here's a live look at the scene where this all ended down in Boca Chica along I-55. That is in Lincoln County. This is where investigators say the suspect shot and killed the victim before taking his own life.
But the tragic situation didn't end there. Even after crashing, he continued to hold Pheonecia hostage and made demands after demands before releasing her. He had told the authorities that he wanted to see his mother, so his mother was brought to the crash site. His mother tried to intervene and get him to surrender and let Pheonecia go, but he refused and made one last demand. He told the cops that he would surrender if allowed to see his child, but unfortunately, that was one demand the cops could not fulfill. They could not bring a child to a highly volatile situation like the one they were in, as they could not guarantee her safety. And unfortunately, the situation ended in a tragedy.
A Canton family heartbroken after a young woman was killed in a murder just days after police released her boyfriend from jail for stalking her.
Pheonecia's friends and family members were beyond shattered to learn what had happened to Pheonecia.
And the pain that I'm going through right now, it's unbearable right now. I love my niece to death. There's nothing I wouldn't do for my family. And I wasn't even able to be there to try to help her.
The very next day after the tragic incident, a balloon launch memorial was held to celebrate the calm, colorful, and vibrant life Pheonecia lived. With her friends and family were also her sorority sisters, as she was a member of the Zeta Phi Beta sorority.
Friends and family met to honor and remember Pheonecia Ratliff. Yesterday, the Jackson State University student was shot and killed by her ex-boyfriend, who then turned the gun on himself.
Her friends spoke very fondly of her. In fact, no one at the memorial had anything but praises for Pheonecia, who they said will be remembered as a hardworking student with a caring soul and an angelic smile. It seemed Pheonecia touched many hearts before her passing. Her sorority sisters also spoke of her work ethic. She took extra classes in the summer just to finish in December. She always told me that she was ready to leave college and she would do whatever she needed to graduate as quickly as possible. Pheonecia Ratliff was expected to graduate this winter with a degree in childhood education.
She was a very determined young lady. She was a very influential young lady, even to her sisters and even to myself, you know. She never gave up easily, and she loved us, you know, just as we loved her.
Pheonecia was also described as an easygoing person who could be trusted to give the best advice and keep the peace among her sorority sisters. She was always the positive sister throughout all our chaos, our peacemaker.
And you know, now it's just so hard right now, you know, to even accept this, you know, knowing that she was one of the innocent ones, you know. She was so innocent, she was so sweet, and she was always to herself.
Pheonecia's family members present at the memorial also had a lot to say, especially her mother, Suzanne Briscoe, who amidst heavy tears celebrated her daughter's life.
The sweetest person you'd ever meet. Those were the words from Suzanne Briscoe, the mother of Pheonecia Ratliff, who was kidnapped, then shot and killed by her ex-boyfriend Friday morning.
Hundreds of balloons were released in the sky to honor Pheonecia. It was also an opportunity for all who loved her to gather and share their grief.
I don't know, Lord, what I'm gonna do now that she's gone. But in honor of Pheonecia, fly high, baby. God got you.
It was a lovely ceremony where everyone gathered to share their love of Pheonecia and stories of the kind of impact she had on everyone she ever met.
Yesterday was a lot. I turned my phone off, and you know, today has been better because we have been together. You know, it makes it seem as if she's still here with us because we're living off her memories.
Her boss, who was the general manager at the subway where she worked, also attended her memorial. Although it was a work day, he took time off work to say goodbye to Pheonecia, describing her as someone who wanted more for herself. She was intent on making something of her life. She was a very delightful person. I mean, she's as good as gold. Though what happened to her was tragic, her boss wanted everyone to remember her for how she lived rather than how she died. She made her mind up. She had left the guy, he started going crazy, and she started filing reports on him. Let everyone know what a wonderful person she was, referring to her as Nicia. Subway owner and Madison County coroner Alex Breland also said everybody loved her. People were just crazy about her.
Melanie Suzanne Briscoe said her daughter was getting ready to graduate from Jackson State University in December, but instead of her finishing school and being a mother, her life was taken by her ex-boyfriend.
Pheonecia Ratliff filed a DV report against Jamarquis Black in April. 1 week later, she filed stalking charges. Another week later, she was dead. What happened to 23-year-old Pheonecia Ratliff was nothing short of tragic, but what made it 10 times worse was that she did everything right. She called the authorities, alerted them to his behavior, and took out an order of protection. But in the end, it still wasn't enough. After the death of Pheonecia Ratliff, the state of Mississippi itself began to take more precautions on DV victims, but sadly, Pheonecia Ratliff had to lose her life to open so many eyes. Although Pheonecia was gone, her family were determined to keep fighting to get her daughter back home where she belonged. More than a year after Pheonecia's death, her mother, Suzanne, has only enjoyed a couple of brief glimpses of her granddaughter, who lives 2 hours away with Jamarquis' mother. According to Suzanne, Jamarquis' mother would not allow the baby to attend her mother's funeral or a memorial Suzanne organized on May 15, 2021, the first anniversary anniversary of Pheonecia's death, besides her grief, Suzanne must deal with a court battle to secure joint custody of her granddaughter. The child now lives in Nesbitt with her paternal grandmother, who has filed for guardianship and petition needs successfully to have the case moved from Madison to DeSoto County. Suzanne has a lawyer and plans to fight for joint custody. Meanwhile, Pheonicia's siblings have not only lost Pheonecia, but their baby niece as well. The custody case is still in court as at the time of the making of this video, but hopefully it works out for Pheonicia's family, and at some point Pheonicia's daughter will find out that the mother of the man who took her mother away has also kept her away from her family. For Pheonicia's friends, family, and mother, more days would come without their loved ones, but they are grateful for the time they did have. Hey, thanks for watching. What are your thoughts on this case? Do you know of other similar cases? Let me know in a comment, and before you go, make sure you like, subscribe, and hit that bell button. See you next time, and stay safe.